Hi class, Kylie here. I was sent by Dr. Ima to teach today's lesson, and lucky for us, we were donated cupcakes from Dr. Spencer's Cupcakes. Today's lesson discusses how we would take a cupcake and break down all of the nutrients and then utilize those nutrients for energy for our body. This process is called cellular respiration. So how can we create energy for the body through eating a delicious cupcake? As I previously mentioned, it's through a process called cellular respiration. There are 4 stages involved in cellular respiration. The first is glycolysis. The second is the bridge reaction or transition reaction. The third is the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. And the fourth is the electron transport chain. The first stage is glycolysis. Glycolysis is quite literally a Greek word that means glucose splitting. So in order for glycolysis to occur, energy is a very, very necessary component. The purpose of glycolysis is to take one glucose molecule and split it into 2 molecules of pyruvate. Glycolysis consists of a series of reactions that take energy from the molecules of glucose. They then split it into 3 carbon molecules that are then called pyruvates. This is the first phase of cellular respiration, but it doesn't necessarily always require oxygen. For today's lesson, we are going to talk about the aerobic process, which does require oxygen. So glycolysis takes place in the cytosol, which is located in the cell, and it breaks down into 2 phases. The first is the energy requiring phase, which is the initial molecule of glucose. It moves around, and then 2 phosphate groups attached to each glucose molecule. Through this phase, there are 2 ATP molecules that are used. And then we have the energy releasing phase, which is the 3 carbon sugar that converts into another 3 carbon molecule, also known as pyruvate. Through this phase, 2 ATP and 1 NADH molecules form. All of the reactions that take place in glycolysis are catalyzed by their own enzymes, and the most important is the phosphofructokinase, and this enzyme catalyzes the unstable 2-phosphate sugar molecule. The second stage is the bridge reaction, or it's sometimes known as the transition reaction. This process or phase involves 2 different phases. So the decarboxylation of the pyruvate, and then the attachment of the remainder to a coenzyme A molecule. This process is very, very important to aerobic respiration as a whole. So at the end of this process, each pyruvate molecule, there is a carbon that is double bonded to a hydroxyl group. The H atom in this hydroxyl group dissociates from the O atom. In decarboxylation, we call this carbon dioxide, or CO2. And then the remainder of the pyruvate is commonly referred to as an acetyl group, and it joins the coenzyme A. And then we move to the third stage, and quite honestly the most important stage, and that's the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is the first molecule to form throughout this cycle. It's also referred to as the TCA cycle because it contains 3 carboxyl groups on the intermediates. This is the main driver of cellular respiration. Acetyl coenzyme A is produced through the process of oxidizing pyruvate and originally comes from the glucose molecule itself. Most of the energy that is formed from the Krebs cycle consists of NADH and FADH2. The ATP molecules are also included. Their electrons will pass through, into, and through the electron transport chain, and through oxidative phosphorylation and the most amount of ATPs are able to be produced. The ultimate goal is to produce enough ATPs for our bodies to then use that as energy and function properly. The Krebs cycle as a whole takes place in the mitochondria, more specifically within the matrix. And the most notable fact about the Krebs cycle is the fact that the pyruvate converts into acetyl coenzyme A. This is considered to be a closed loop because it's the last step and it reforms the initial molecule of glucose into a different structure. And our final stage is the electron transport chain. This is the last step in cellular respiration, and it's the only process that truly utilizes oxygen. Oxygen is constantly used in so many processes throughout the human body, basically in everything we do throughout our daily function. The electron transport chain involves 4 large multi-protein complexes and takes place in the mitochondria. This process utilizes a process referred to as chemotaxis, which essentially is used to pump hydrogen ions across the membrane. The idea of all of this is to form ATP, produce ATP for our body to then use for energy and to carry out life's functions. So I think it's really cool if you think about all the food that you put into your body on a daily basis. Every molecule that we put into our body, or every nutrient, if you will, goes through a process very similar to this. And our body metabolizes things very differently. And through cellular respiration, we are able to carry out daily life functions, utilizing energy. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, and I hope you enjoy the cupcakes as well. I think cellular respiration is so cool, and it's so interesting, and it's so important to our daily life functions. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.